Welcome back to this another edition of Joe and the Job Site. We're continuing our conversation with Nathan Ahrens. Nathan, in our last conversation, you mentioned that there was a seven people that leave and one electrician comes in. How do you work with that for the field? Because when I look at it, the wages and the pay, you got to entice them somehow. What do you do to work with that?
Yeah, that's a hard fight. We try to look ahead to the job sites that are coming down the pipeline, and we try to average the manpower per the job site. Look at what our workforce is, and try to acquire more people as we need. The issue we have is recruitment to a degree, and keeping people on staff. And we're competing with McDonald's and other trades for their attention. Um, so initially you try to raise wages. You can only raise them so high right away without any experience. So your next thing's benefits. Our company offers a fully matched 401k up to 100% up to $10,000 after you've been with us for 6 months. We pay for your health insurance after 90 days. We'll put you to school for free. Um, and we're pretty lax on time off. That's the one thing this next generation after me is looking for. Like, the mentality has changed in the workforce. It's not the same as it was when you were in. It's not the same as when I was in. We chased the money. You stayed late. You worked hard because you had to, and that's what had to get done. This next generation, they're looking more for time with the family, time with friends. They don't necessarily need the money. They might be living at home still, so they look for more a relaxed working environment, stress free.
Wow, that's a lot of difference from the time when I came up to where you paid your dues, you learned. If you had to be there an extra hour or two, you put it in so you could advance, and your wages grew proportionally with that dedication.
Yeah, and they catch a lot of shrapnel from the older generations about being soft and soft hands, but they have skills that the older generation doesn't. I mean, these kids can work an iPad and pull up blueprints, and they work the Tremble system real well. Um, whereas the older guys have issues. They're still doing line diagrams on blueprints.
Well, I can side with that because I came up through. You had your drawings. We had a tape, a chain. We had a transit that we laid out with the build old builders levels and stuff. They were old dinosaurs. You had to read the vernier scales with a magnifying glass to be able to see what you were doing and turning it even correctly. And you had to pull the chain. It had to be pulled level. Didn't matter what the grade is because your line is level, not at an angle. And to get 60 feet out, you can't have 10 degrees of elevation or a negative 10 and expect to have that 60 foot in the right spot.
Yeah,
And to this day, I have came through the transition. You know, the difference from back then when I came up, when you came up, is I learned to do it the physical way. And then as I've been in the industry, in the middle of my industry, I found iPads, computer, were doing the drawings, you were writing your RFIs, you're writing letters. There was no memo statement pads you used to use. It was all done in the computer, and which was better because you were paperless, you had records, and you didn't have 28 boxes to go to Iron Mountain when you got done. It was stored on 10 CDs. But you're the kids today, I had to learn how to use that electronics. The kids today, what you just said, they come right up to it. Oh yeah, this is what we do on the iPad. And when the old guy, me, has to go to the young guy that's 26 years old and said, "Can you show me how to do this on the iPad?" And that is where I learned, because if I didn't, I would have gotten left behind.
yeah. I mean, they've embraced technology because they grew up with it, and that's the good thing. Like I said, the trim system now with augmented reality, you can pick 3 points, lay it out, and then you can put a visor on your hard hat and walk that job site, and you can see it in real time. Um,
Yeah, that's the AI
Yeah,
technology is
you
coming
can
up.
you can walk the job site for your reports with a camera on your hard hat, and it takes real time pictures, and it registers whether the drywall was put up yesterday, today, any blemishes, and your progress reports are done that way. Excavators digging, you can set the depth on your bucket, and I can put a new kid in that excavator, and he can dig, and it won't go below 2 feet.
It'll hold the grade.
It'll hold the grade the entire way. He can't mess that up.
I've seen that on road graders where they would cut a whole parking lot with it, and they'd have the 2, targets, one on each end of the
Yep.
blade, and, the slope and the changes of the grade in a parking lot, they would cut the sub base, put that thing down and cut the fine rock for paving, and wasn't no lines and strings. It was done with one guy watching and moving a little and the other guy on the grader.
Yep.
Yeah, technology is a wonderful thing. And, you know, and that's one of the differences from when I came up, when you came up, to how the kids are coming up now. They never knew the hard work, the basics, how to get the work done if they didn't have that working.
Yeah, and that's that's the sad part too, is you kinda lose that old school technology a little bit as the new generation comes in. I mean, I'm sure you refer to a drill as a drill motor still, right? Yeah, I didn't know what that was. I knew it was a drill, but then the old guys always called them drill motors, so that was a learning thing. But, I've watched my foreman hit the job site when we've lost a pipe or we've lost something, and he's pulled out the old dowsing rods. You ever see that where you hold two sticks or 2 wires in, you
I've
walk out
done that
until they cross?
myself.
You show that to the new generation, it blows their mind. It blew my mind the first time I saw it, and that's an old school technology.
I did that, and we were locating a water line. We were 2 days away from getting ground radar out, and I still have them to this day in my toolbox at home. And I started walking, and I closed my eyes, and I walked across, and they said, "They're crossed."
Yep.
And I backed up, and I walked forward, and I said, "I'm within 2 foot of it right here." And, I've watched old farmers use a beech rod or a beech tree fork and locate it, and they would tell you how deep the water was.
Yeah, I've seen that too.
But again, they still need to know some of those old things to be able to work today, because if the electronics quit, the computer's down, they don't know what to do.
Yep. It's all adaptation.
What other differences have you seen from when we started to when you started and to now?
The for us, the biggest technology change is in the power tools, you know? Like, first you had NiCad batteries that didn't last very long, you had quarter tools that didn't have the power behind it. Now I can they brought up the NiCad, then you went to lithium. The original lithiums were horrible. You had 18-volt, 24-volt, and they just couldn't have the power. They didn't last very long. They'd die in the cold. Now with the new generations out, like I don't even need an 18-volt hammer drill. I can run the 12-volt, and I get just as much power out of that with less weight. It's the technology power tool wise has changed in the last 20 years, and your efficiency comes from that.
Yeah, and now they have created more tools, specific tools to do the work so that you're not so much doing it by hand.
Hmm.
You have a power tool to assist. And years ago, just a drywall guy had all the fancy tools. That screw gun helped production.
Hmm.
Now you can get a screw gun with a load feed on it where he does zip, 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 zip and increases his production and less time for him.
Yeah, for all of our logs that we have to do, we can torque spec those. We can log them in the computer. Then it uploads to our computer. We can print them out for the inspector. Same thing with our crimps that we have to do to a certain tonnage. If they want a certain printout, hey, yep, we did all these leads at this pressure, and here's your printout for it.
And they're good with it.
They're good with it.
Yeah. Remember they used to have to do visuals on it.
Yeah,
Sometimes they'd sit and watch you do it just to see that you were doing it right. Not every one, but to see that you had the right work going on.
and I've been around long enough. When we had to do our Megger testing on the insulation, well, I've had to crank that Megger thing up while they run it instead of nowadays we just push the button and the batteries do the job. So,
You know that Megger tester?
hmm.
I've actually been on a project. It was back in the 90s where we used one. We had put a motor control center in, and we were losing motors. The motors were burning up. And we your company at that time, the owner came out with a Megger, and we did it, every one of those to check them, and they were fine. So we went to the engineer the company that built the motor control center. Now that's been a long time ago because they're not the big wall units now they used to be. Engineer met us out there, and we stood out there by the motor control center, and he said, "Oh, I know what's wrong." And he went over there and adjusted. It was dials, not little push buttons. And he adjusted it, and he could hear the hum of the motor change. And he was changing the sine
Oh,
wave of the opening it up in different directions and closing it. And he fixed it, and we never lost another motor. We never went back.
that's
We
good.
lost 3 motors before they got fixed. It was expensive. So the technology may be there to help you, but sometimes the old ways are the best.
Yeah.
You know, that brings up a point I get asked from time to time. Will AI replace the person in the field?
I don't think AI will. What worries me is robotics more than anything else. I watched a video not too long ago. I don't know what company it was, but they had a welding robot that was humanoid up on a boom lift, finishing off some welding on some red iron. And I've seen some drywall robots and I've seen some other things. I don't know if they'll have an electrician robot because I doubt you can get one to crawl through an attic ceiling at that point in time.
Well, my answer to that question, in my opinion, is it won't replace the guys in the field. It will make their work easier
Hmm.
and require less physical labor with the tools we have for today that work with the systems we have. And you look at some of the manufacturing plants that have lines where they assemble items, and a lot of it is robotics. That robotic, uh, put to find a robot, which may come in the future, that can run a conduit bank on the bottom of structural steel all the way down the building and then pull the wire and understand where the home runs are going and how to drop it off. That's still in
That's
that
still,
person's in field.
yeah.
And it won't replace the carpenter that's setting the forms or the plumber that's running the pipe and the sprinkler fitters and stuff. But so there's another thing we kind of mentioned earlier, but I'd like to get a little deeper on is trade schools that are private versus apprenticeships.
Yeah. So personally, I'm worried about the future to a degree with our industry. Like you mentioned earlier, we're at a loss rate, and we're trying to fill those slots. And the next generation is coming up with an understanding that they have a future and that we can accommodate them to a degree. What worries me is that they're going to get the same sour taste in their mouth with some of these private schools that my generation had with student loans and colleges. Um, right now, like I mentioned, when I came up, and a lot of across the nation things, you can do a union school, you can do a private company where they put you through training, and that's what I did.
So you would pay a fee. You the person would pay a fee to go through the private training school.
Yes, yeah. So my company, like I said, put me through our school here locally for free. Didn't cost me anything. 4 years. A lot of these kids that I'm starting to see now are jumping onto the private school train. These tech schools after high school are about 8 to 9 months long. They will get them their OSHA 10. They'll give them a certificate, an NCR certificate or something like that, and they'll charge them anywhere from 15,000 to $20,000 for 9 months of training. And at that point in time, they're coming out of there with maybe 2 months of full work if you did it by 40-hour weeks. But the problem is you're not doing on the job training with it for the most part. So what you're covering in the classroom for one night, and you're not seeing in the field until you actually get out there later. By that time, you've lost the knowledge. You don't understand how that functions. So my fear is I'm getting kids that are coming to me with these certificates that want higher pay money.
Because I've been to this school.
Yeah, I've been to this school, I have the certificate, and I'm like, oh, that's great. And I ask them questions, and they can't answer the questions I ask them. And I put them out in the field, they can't do the things that their pay level says that they should be able to do.
So they if you said, "Hey, we need to put a conduit run up, go grab the bender and take off or
Yeah.
pull a wire,"
They
they
can't do it.
wouldn't.
They can't do it. And now they've spent 15 to $20,000 on this school that they thought they were gonna come out and make decent money on, but they don't have the skills or the knowledge. And if that was me, I'd be pretty upset, and, it would probably turn me off of the trade or whatever other route I was trying to take. And my friends, I'd be like, "Yeah, don't do that. It's not worth it."
No. So, what do you do when you get those? Do you still have to put them through your apprenticeship programs?
We offer it. I'll bring them in, and I'll sit them down, and you know, I'll try to talk them down in price because I'm like, "Look, I know what you went through. I know the school you went through, and that's great, but, I guarantee you don't have the knowledge that you think you have. And if I put you out in the field at a certain rate that's above your skill level, I'm gonna have no choice but to let you go after so many days. If I can hire you at this rate and start you off and we can work with you some more, then I can raise you up in wages as you I see fit and as you deserve it." Um, and some of them push back on it. But as I ask them more questions, okay, well, tell me this about the code or tell me this about the pipe or do this, and they can't answer the questions, then they start to realize where they're at.
So, they have the option to really, once they come out of the private school, they still got a lot of learning to do
Yeah.
in order just to apply the trade that they went through to the private school.
Yeah. I would say you don't. you can't actually start to apply your knowledge at a decent level until you're about 2.5 years in.
Right.
Once you start hitting that 2.5 year mark, 2 year mark, that's when you become competent and trustworthy, and everything starts to click. Everything starts to make sense about why we're pulling the wire here, conduit fill, box fill, circuit making up, why we ran the wire the way we did. It all starts to click in, and you can function as a person.
Yeah, you could go at your foreman or superintendent can say, "Hey, we're doing this today. Go get it," without a lot of hand holding.
Yep,
And that is a cost that the trade school is theirs, and then if you get them in the school, it's paid for by the company,
by the
correct?
yeah, we pay for it. We pay for their books if they get A's. And I think it's a better program. It's a little bit longer, but at least not only you working during the day to learn your on the job training knowledge, but then you're at school at night and you're like, oh, okay, 2 nights a week. Okay, we did this morning. I understand now. This makes more sense in the book instead of me just handing you a book, explain it to you, and then 2 days later you forget it.
So, one of the things I've always been taught, and when you're teaching and talking to people, is there's 3 different ways they learn: hearing, seeing, and doing, for short term in that example. How do you handle that with the young kids that come out? How do you maneuver through which way do I teach this person?
That's a hard one. Like you said, everybody has different skill levels. Fortunately, with the construction industry, a lot of people that fall into it are more hands-on learning. If you were just a book reader and you learn that way, you're gonna be in college for the most part, probably. But with hands-on, and you just take your time. I put them with journeymen or lead guys that will have the patience to teach them and can show them, and if we have time, we'll run them through stuff.
Well, if you've got a seven leave and one comes in, you could put 4 journeymen teaching them
If I could
just to get them to move up.
If I had time to have 4 journeymen do that and run a job at the same time, we'd be good to go.
Do you do any classes yourself in the company to help them?
We try. Timing is of the essence of everything, and I can't necessarily pull 5 to 10 people out of the field, or else that would hurt our jobs.
Right.
We're already stretched thin, but we try to make time to pull people out, or on the job training, I will go out there and certify them in certain things or run them through certain things. We focus more on a leadership one. Like once I start putting them in charge of job sites, I've had some classes where we come in and we train them for a day or two, give them prints. Hey, you have a job coming up. We're going to put you in charge of it. Here's how everything should flow, start to finish. Here's what we expect. Here's our paperwork. Um, here's your inspection process, and just in case you didn't catch it for the last 2 years, and then here's your blueprints, and then sit with them for a day and go over the blueprints. Here's what you need to look out for on this job. Here's a few things. I'll try to get the estimators that estimated the job to come down and talk to them about what they see coming down the pipeline as some of the major red flags or some issues we might have. And that way they have a chance to talk about it. And then usually they don't start that job for another month or so. So it gives them time to take the prints home, look at it, talk to some people. And I always tell them, if you have questions, call me. I'll gladly spend time with you.
And do you have, like a mentor that would roam around or check on them to see that, hey, just came by to check on you to see how you're doing and your
Mm,
comfort level, and you have any questions?
to a degree, our project managers do that. They float pretty easily. Not that they aren't busy, but they will ask, "You guys good? Do you guys need anything? Does anybody have any questions?" And I do that too when I walk the job sites. "Hey, does anybody need anything? You doing okay? Hey, can I help you out with anything? Is there anything I do to make your life better?" And I found that it's hard to ask those questions sometimes because they get intimidated by the position or the person. And I don't know how many times I've walked a job site, talked to somebody, and then 2 days later, somebody else calls me and say, "Hey, so and so wants to talk to you," or they have an issue, and I'm like, "Oh, why didn't they say when I was there?" "Well, they were scared," and I'm like, "That's kind of what my job is. I'm here to help you."
Right. And that's where, as a supervisor, you've got to have that open, approachable appearance where they feel like they can come and talk to you. And it took me a while to learn that. When those when they come out of the trade school, the private trade school, how are they for safety?
They have their OSHA 10, so technically speaking, they should have a general knowledge of what's expected. Um, there's still that area though that you have to learn. Learn where to stand, be aware of your surroundings, learn what you're doing, learn what others around you are doing more than anything else. You can protect yourself all day long, but it's those around you that might get you in trouble more than anything else.
Yeah.
So, don't walk out in front of that lull. Don't stand by that door. Don't be in the way of that wire that's getting pulled. It could break and slap back and hit you, It's
Don't
it
walk behind moving machinery.
Yeah, watch your
Don't
pinch points.
Yeah, don't take a panel cover off when it's hot.
Yeah, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So,
Do you guys have a specialized training that you put them through for that safety? Because, there's the worry about arc flash, people getting a little jolt of electricity. Some of them hit, some of them,
no,
you know,
we
you even when you put conduit in the ground, we have the tracer tape or the warning tape that goes on top. And a lot of people don't see or worry with, oh, that's no, I'll never need it. But
No, we do once a week training on the job. Everybody does once a week training. Signs goes over something that might be happening, whether it's a crane or scaffolding or equipment. Like we cover one topic once a week. We require all of our guys to have tick testers with them. We don't work any circuits hot in our company. Before anything goes live on that job site, I go out there. We have a stand down. We have a talk with everybody. Hey, look, and I mean everybody, trades, welders, plumbers, everybody. Hey, we're about to turn some circuits on. You know, do not touch anything, do not go near anything. If you see something, say something to one of our electricians, we will come and check it for you before you go near it.
yeah, it's as a superintendent, we used to tell them it's electrician, don't touch it.
Yeah. And we do lockout, tag out, and all that stuff also.
And the tick tester, that's the little tube that turns red and green
Yep,
when
it'll
you.
beep at you and let you know if there's voltage on there at all.
I've carried one in my vest all the time. It's part of the tools you want to have because you go by and ask the question, especially if you're doing a remodel or a refit and you think you've killed all the circuits. And the one thing that I've seen happen a lot is when they do a shared neutral, which they don't do anymore. The old days they did,
Meh,
and you can still wind up with some current on it.
yeah. And then the maintenance guys are our worst enemies too if you're doing a remodel. Those maintenance guys will hobby anything together to keep it running. So,
Well, that's what they're there for.
yeah, oh, yeah.
And how many
Yeah.
times have you been in an old building and look up? Yep, there's about 8 open boxes there, and that one's missing a wire nut.
Yep. Oh, look, they use the ground to power this thing because they lost the neutral in that. So,
Yeah, I've seen those. You know, the one thing I've noticed is that the schools in this county are reducing the amount of schools that they have because the state vouchers have come in and given them the option to go into private
mhm.
schools. Do you see a gain with the talent that comes out of a private school, high school, K through 12, so to speak?
Mhm.
Do you see a difference of the educational level that comes out?
I don't have any kids, and it's hard to tell talking to some of these kids whether they went through private school or public school. That's not a conversation I have with them,
Yeah.
when they come in. Um, no, I don't. I know I know there's gripes down here that the private school is better at the K through 12 level than the public school. I can't vouch either way for that.
Yeah.
Um, my concern is just getting them educated and trained once they hit
Get
our area.
get 'em up to level. Yeah, I've noticed too a change in the available talent in the field because of industrial arts have disappeared from the schools.
Yeah.
And what do you do with them? They that actually attracted the young folks that could have a little skill level, sheet metal, masonry, electrical, carpentry, even nursing were in some of those schools
Mhm.
where they could get warmed up. And when they went on to the trades, they had a little bit of knowledge to start with instead of walking in cold turkey and having to teach them.
I think you'll see probably that change with supply and demand. I mean, the state recognizes, and nationally, we recognize that there's a shortage of all trades. So there's going to be knee jerk reaction to get that fixed eventually. Either that, or it's going to solve its own problem. Really.
Yeah. Well, an economic change has can drive that some because the days when worked on the field, as a young apprentice, I was there early on the job. And if start time was at 7, I was at the gang box with my tools on when the clock ticked 7. I didn't wait till 59:59 to drive on the job and jump out of my car and run in. And I did have some good fortunes, like, I'd have a doctor's appointment and tell the superintendent ahead of time, hey, I got a doctor's appointment at 2:30. Can I go? And he'd say, what time you need to leave? And, you take off to your doctor's appointment, come back the next day. And on a good day, if you were doing well, he would not dock my time. He would keep me paid right through it.
Yeah, I mean, I've had some of these kids when I've wanted to speak to them ask me like, "Hey, what's one thing I can do to improve my chances of getting a raise or getting a better position or being hired and all that stuff?" And that's the one thing I've told them. I said, "It's free." I said, "The easiest thing you can do is free." And they're like, "What's that?" And I go, "If you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. All you have to do is show up and be ready to go."
Want to work, try, listen, and apply. Yeah, those are some tough ones that you have to maneuver through in today's time. You know, we mentioned a few minutes ago about you starting up a project with a superintendent and some of the safety training. Do you guys put them through a 10, a 30-hour course for OSHA on in your
When we
company?
when we put them through feet, they get a 10-hour OSHA course. So we kind of rely on that aspect to kind of cover that. Certain job sites through certain GCs require 30-hour guy to be on site.
Yeah,
Um,
and that's true. That's correct. They
and
always want at least 130 per X amount of men.
yep, they also want first aid training now and CPR training. Also, one guy for that, and I understand that. And if we fall short on that, we get somebody trained up and send them out that way. So,
And your programs internally are geared so that the individual can succeed if they just apply themselves.
oh yeah, yeah. I mean, that's a lot of it. If this in this industry, if you just put a little bit of effort in, you get massive gains.
Yeah. And the earning capabilities for an electrician is really how much they want to put the effort in.
Yeah,
If you work at it, you can grow faster as long as you're making the achievements. I went through a program where we had to create modules and finish modules in the program in order to get your next 50-cent raise.
hmm
If you completed 3 of them in a year, you got a dollar and a half that year. And then eventually they did employee evaluations as your once you top out and become a journeyman and you're still learning.
yeah.
I remember I was when I passed out as a journeyman, I thought, man, I'm good. I can go. But I spent the next 40 years of my life learning more because what you learned in the past, technology has changed, things have changed, the ways, the methods, the means have all changed. Technology's made it better for you. You have to learn it to stay in the trade. And I remember my first safety course, it was a 10-hour OSHA and I did the 30s a bunch. That was one of the requirements we had was our company always had the rule that your OSHA 30 was good for 2 years. And every 2 years you needed to take the OSHA 30. I've had that OSHA 30 a lot,
Yeah.
but they put us through scaffold training. They put us through forklift training, equipment training, buck hoist training. Um, they put us through swing stage training and you had to go through the whole course to learn how to inspect it to see that it was right before it could be put into service. And sometimes we employed a third party inspector to come out and say, okay, is this right? And you would walk with them and you could learn from them. But, once you applied that a few times, you grew and you became more valuable so that when things got thin, and I'll never forget on the job one time I was doing with one of the hotel chains, I was working for an old guy. He used to tell me, boy, your bulbs is bad. And we had 5 other guys with us, and I was the apprentice. We got done with the project and was showing the guys, hey, that's not the way we were doing it, and it's missing, it's not working. And they'd get mad and say, you go do it then. And they'd walk away. And I'd look up and there'd be the boss. And then of course, remember the green checks in the pocket when you
No,
saw
sir.
that?
That is before my time.
So back then, if you saw the superintendent walk out with green checks sticking out of his pocket, you knew what was going to happen. Layoff time.
Mm.
Job was done. And I got through. He let them 5 go and he kept me. And he looked at me and he said, boy, your bulbs ain't so bad. But I was willing to do the work and the effort and learn. And, he was a great mentor for me for a couple of years working for that hotel chain where we individually did the millwork and stuff. You don't, I see the students today not having that experience, but with the mentors that are uh, slowing down in the field or retiring out, we have a void that we have to work on.
We do. They're also filling it themselves, like with TikTok and YouTube and Instagram and Facebook and every other media that they have at their disposal. They can easily pull up videos and people and watch something and learn it instantly
Yeah.
at whatever time they want to do it. They can do it right then and there.
That's
and there's enough apps on their phone. I've seen guys pull out apps to bend conduit and put the calculations in. So they might not have the actual mentors, but there's supplemental material there to fill that gap.
yeah. So if you were on a job site, because your company primarily subcontracts through
Yep.
the GC, what would you say a superintendent that's on the job site could do for your team that would make the job better for them?
The hardest thing our guys have, or a new one, I should say, is learning how to manage his guys. Um, Everybody, when they start the job, expects to have a crackerjack crew, and that is never the case. You go in expecting that, hoping that, and then that's just never the case. What you have to do is you have to learn how to talk to the guys. You have to learn who has what strengths, and then apply those strengths accordingly. That is where you shine as a leader. Just because one guy's good, he's been there forever, doesn't mean he can bend conduit or lead a crew. He might be the best wire puller there is, and that's where you need to put him at.
Yeah,
You
if
know,
that's his
if
forte.
that's what he's good at, that's where you need to put. And just learning how to manage those selections. That's what makes you a good leader over there.
So the
Look,
subcontractor, how could the GC help your team out?
the GCs can help us out by not being in the same situation that we're in. Back in your day, the GCs self-performed a few things and did stuff. The GCs find themselves in the same situation that we are at now. They are shorthanded. And by being shorthanded, they have been forced to manage the job and not self-perform as much. So you've lost a little bit of that experience. You've lost a little bit of that investment also, because it's not just you that's in trouble. It's just the trades that are in trouble,
Right.
the subs. Um, so there's a lot of green guys, a lot of green kids, college kids coming out of school that are going right into the general contracting trade, and that you're putting as a field engineer or whatever. And they have no experience whatsoever besides what that book and whatever they learned in a classroom has
And they're
told them.
out running a job.
And they're out running a job. And their scheduling isn't going well. They're not pushing certain trades to get done at certain times. They're not following the schedule that they set, and they're not responding back to the owner, not responding back to the architect or the engineer the way they should be with RFIs and getting questions answered in a decent time so we can get our job done. And that's our biggest headache. If if the GCs could have a little bit more in the game and have a little more experience and a little more flow, that makes us easier.
Okay. So you have an upcoming superintendent or team on the field,
Hmm.
and you're looking for new leadership. What key strengths do you like to see before you promote a person to leadership,
I like to see somebody who can, on a regular basis, be there on time, because I'm not going to put you in a leadership position if you're not going to be at work all the time
or just
or
disappear?
just disappear.
Yeah.
I need you to be competent. So if for the last 2 3 months I've asked you to order some material, or you're supposed to be ordering material, and you're constantly running out of 1 inch pipe that you've been running for the last 2 months, then I know that you're not looking forward enough in the job
Yeah.
to realize you're going to need that.
So forward looking,
Forward looking,
planning,
and I need somebody who can talk to other people. You know,
communication.
Yep, because if I put you in charge of something and you're just mean, or you can't function with other guys, no one's gonna wanna work with you, and there's no point in being there.
Right. Your leadership is
It's horrendous.
tainted
Yeah.
where it isn't effective.
Mhm.
You can know a lot, but if you can't communicate it,
Yeah.
it's a hardship.
And this is a brotherhood. Word gets around. It's a small industry. So if guys before they go to another job site know that that's where they're going, don't send me there. I'm not going there. If you send me there, I'll quit. And I have a whole different headache on my hands.
How that's I've actually heard that before, and you have to ask them why.
Right.
What is the reason?
Yeah, then they say I'm not working for that guy. He can't talk to me. He treats me poorly. He's not organized. His job sites are a mess. It's not worth the stress.
Yeah, they don't want to be in that environment.
Nope.
Years ago, we just muddled through and kept going because we needed to work.
Now there's options.
Yeah.
The next generation has options. They have their priorities are different than what ours were, and if jobs are plentiful.
How often do you find an individual that you invest 4 years in, get them through the apprenticeship, get them skilled up, and then
Poof.
they say, I got a little better money over here. I'm going over there. And they don't even talk to you. They just say, I'm going.
Probably about 40% of the time, mm, people shift over. And it's I understand it. Our company has been around for a long time that I work for.
Hmm.
our company is pretty good. We have guys there that have been there for 40 years. And so that creates kind of a pyramid effect, y so you can only move up so far. You hit that wall because the guy above you has been there for 30 years and he's not going anywhere and he's good at what he does.
Yeah, but you also understand too, he's gonna age out
He's gonna
someday
age
and
out someday.
be patient
Be
and
patient, but at the same time, you're young and hungry. You wanna get a leadership role, you've gone through school, you want more money, there's a way to get it, and it's no longer like it used to be where you would stay with the company, you get a pension, you get a gold watch, and you're on your way, you're good to go, you know?
those days are
Those
gone.
days are gone. Now with the next generation, they've learned that the jobs are plentiful, there's no scarcity in work, you're not in a recession. They can make more money by moving laterally from one company to another company to another company, and then come back and say, "Hey, look, I did these 4 projects. I was a foreman, now as a project manager, this is what I want."
Yeah.
And, if that's what you're looking for, then you have no choice but to pay for the foot.
It's interesting that the folks wanna do that because one of the things in the past, we had a program to where if you wanted to be promoted up, you had to be doing 40% of the next level work before you were promoted to ensure that you could fill that position and not just get it and not be able to do the work. And there were a lot of people that I saw would leave so that they could get that position, realize they couldn't do it, and come back.
That happens. I mean, that's the industry too. The biggest thing that I've been pushing for is smaller jobs for us so that we can train guys because we're used to doing, 3 to $10 million jobs. They last 2.5 years. Um, I'm trying to push more for 8-month long jobs that may be under $1 million. And that way we can take these guys on 4-man crews and put them out there and they can cut their teeth on a job that's not going to kill them mentally or physically.
Right.
And that's worked out well. We're able to train up that way, and it gives us more options to move guys around and see who has strong points and who doesn't.
And it's all about management, understanding the crew you have.
Yeah. And then, I tell the guys at least that, your job is to train that guy to replace you. That's the goal, you know. Not to be worried he's gonna take your job, but that he hopes he takes your job so I can move you up into another position.
Yeah. And one of the best compliments in this industry as a mentor is if the one you're training can pass you.
Mhm.
That means you succeeded
Yeah.
as a mentor. Some people don't want to go any higher, but they make great mentors and they can help bring the young ones up, and to see one grow up and become an advanced higher than your level. Well, it's, hey, we did a good job. Well, I appreciate you coming today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you. We look forward to having a conversation again. We'll see how what time allows in the future. But I think the discussion that we've had about getting people in the industry and keeping them here is key for our listeners, and that you can grow, you can learn, a little bit of dedication, a little bit of heart. You can move up, you can have a successful career. Thank you for coming today, Nathan. I do appreciate it.
No problem, Joe. Thank you.
This is Joe with Joe on the Job Site with another edition. Thank you.